My PC keeps boot cycling over and over after I tried to install a new NVMe and 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance. I have tried many solutions, from stripping most of my parts to clearing my CMOS. I'm hoping this rig would be a good challenge and entertaining video. This here is that viewer's broken gaming PC. We're gonna try to fix it here. So this rig currently sports an AMD Ryzen 5 5600G, a GeForce GTX 1660 Super, and 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance DDR4. Now there were a few things that were, of course, changed when this rig finally broke, or decided not to post, I should say. He said that the problems only arose once he swapped the things that he did. So the new kit of RAM, that's the 32 gig. The Vengeance kit, that was upgraded from a 16 gig XPG kit of memory. And then the storage drive, I don't believe was swapped out. I think there was just an additional storage drive added, that being a 1 terabyte WD Blue, looks like an SN 580, and that's an NVMe. So somewhere along the way, just from upgrading those two components, the rig decided to quit posting. Interesting. Now this is a pre-built from Skytech Gaming. The hardware combination is fine. There's nothing that stands out as much of a bottleneck here, although the components themselves are not very strong by today's standards. Still a very capable 1080p gamer. The rig is a bit dirty. It has noticeably been neglected over the last few months, at the least I would say, especially these front intake fans. They are fairly caked in dust, and some things are just not where they should be. This screw, for example, is like on literally backwards. I'm not even sure how they managed to do this. The right side panel is screwed in very questionably. These screws are actually angled in ways they should not be. I'm not entirely sure what happened here. The owner told me that he was taking things apart, part swapping, trying to get the rig to post again after upgrading what we just mentioned. And so maybe that explains what we're seeing. But we're gonna tackle the small stuff after we figure out what's causing the system not to work. That's the most important thing here. This should be a fun one, and I hope you'll stay with me. If you're planning your next PC build, then consider checking out our sponsor, VIP SCD Key. Their Windows 10 and 11 OEM keys sell for a fraction of retail and will unlock the full potential of your OS. They'll also remove those pesky activation watermarks. Click the links below to get started today, and be sure to use our special offer code SKGS for a sweet discount on a variety of options, including Windows 10 and 11, Pro and Home, and more. Hi there, and welcome to Fix or Flop. In this playlist, we attempt to fix viewers' systems in and around the Orlando, Florida area for free. Folks sign up via the link in the video description, and we reach out and give it our best shot. This is why the series is called Fix or Flop. Sometimes we fix it, sometimes we don't, and in those cases, they're most definitely flops. So hopefully that's not what this one becomes. I think we're gonna be able to hone in on the issue here fairly quickly. We're gonna try powering the system on right away to see if we can replicate the issue described by the owner. We are plugged in and we are powered on the power strip. The rig is on, but no fans are spinning. You know, it's a bit of a rat's nest back here. Okay, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're gonna turn that off. I do not like what I just saw. Not sure if the camera caught any of that, but the RGB was flickering. It wasn't for about a good 3 or 4 minutes lighting up at all. None of the fans were spinning, even though the system did appear to be on. This powers the hub here that all of the fans in the rig are connected to. And all of these connections are sound, so that's why I was confused. And all I did was just kind of like move the cables a bit, and then it started pulsing in a way that it should not have. Uh-oh. On the other side of the rig, 24 pin looks good, supplemental PCI 8 pin, EPS 8 pin up top looks good. His power switch looks good. HD audio down there at the bottom. It's very difficult to see some of the stuff below the card since it's an MATX layout. USB 3. I don't know what that is. SATA data's good. What is it? This is a floppy. Why is that plugged in there? So, looks like we had floppy power plugged into this port. A floppy connector on a power supply looks like this. And you don't see these too much on more modern units, just because most folks aren't using floppy disks anymore. It being plugged into this is not good. This looks like some sort of USB header, and that could be sending power down very incorrect pins, which could explain exactly what we saw. You can get into a lot of trouble plugging things in where you shouldn't. Just ask me how I know. I unintentionally several years ago used the wrong cable to connect a peripheral to a unit, and I ended up sending like 12 volts down the 5-volt lead, and then I was sending 5 volts down a ground, and it just got really nasty, ended up frying some stuff, and I'm not gonna be surprised if that's what happened here. Best thing we can hope for now is that by removing this, we're back to square one, aka the system powering on but not posting, and maybe this time with the fans actually spinning. Oh boy, here we go. Right, okay, didn't actually need to push the power button at all. Is there some kind of like clipping sound? Oh boy. Yeah, this power supply is making sounds I'm not very comfortable with. This cable for the CPU fan was jammed right inside the blade, so we moved it out of the way so that we actually get cooling to the chip. We are not getting a picture, as you can see very clearly here. Here's what we hear from the power supply. I don't want to keep this on much longer because I just don't like the sound. So it's just a constant buzzing. It sounds like coil whine, but worse. I do want to see how this unit fares in our inline tester. So far it looks okay. So we're getting some errors on slew rate. I'm not sure why it's not reading them at all from the looks of it. The unit is also extremely loud the way that it is here. The fan is just ramped up to 100%. Just not getting good vibes from this thing all around. That said, I don't think swapping the power supply alone is going to fix our no post issue. There's probably something else going on in here. Something that's probably not relevant to the discussion, but that I do want to point out is the fact that this M.2 drive is not secured properly. This standoff is supposed to go under the drive. I've seen this several times in Fix or Flop now. It's possible, maybe because this was a pre-built, the owner didn't have the included screw from the motherboard box to mount this properly. This is something that we'll definitely fix. And while I was in there, I was taking a look at this graphics card. Now this is from a company called 51 Risk, which I have not seen great reviews of in the past, not because it's not a great AIB, but because some of these apparently are actually invasive, shall we say. So this company's been known to include laptop GPUs in discrete cards like this, so we'd expect to find a desktop grade chip. You find a laptop one instead, which usually doesn't perform as good as its desktop counterpart. Now this isn't the end of the world if you're paying, you know, a fair price for it. Typically these are gonna run a bit cheaper than true 1660 Ti's, for example, and while I'm not sure if this particular model includes that laptop grade one or not, what I do know is that my good friend over at Craft Computing has found literal malware, Trojan viruses, in the drivers that are included in the boxes with these cards. Essentially, these laptop modified cards can't run native NVIDIA drivers. You can't just go to the NVIDIA website, download the driver for a 1660 Ti, and call it a day. These need to be modified a bit because, again, they're running unorthodox GPUs. And because of that, 51 Risk includes usually a CD or a thumb drive in the box with the card to help you out. Their quote-unquote version of an NVIDIA driver has been modified to accept this form of a graphics card. Problem is, that driver is supposedly where the malware exists. After doing a bit more research, I've found a Linus Tech Tips video that includes this card specifically, a 1660 Super. I've called it a TI probably a couple times in this video already. They're almost the same card. But this was tested along with a few other off-brand 1660 Supers, and all of them performed on par with their MSI, Gigabyte, etc. counterparts. So I don't have a reason to suspect that this one does have a laptop GPU baked in. I think this is a legit, authentic desktop chip. It just is essentially rebranded and probably not new. Just one of those things, I don't think I would risk it with 51 Risk. Back to the viewer's desktop then, this supposedly has a 5600G in it, which does have integrated graphics, which means we can remove this graphics card as a potential variable, as a potential failure point. We're gonna see now, with a known working power supply connected, if we can get a post. Not sure if anything is going to change here. Doesn't look like it wants to post. It's actually really concerning that the only fan spinning is pulsing. It's on, 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 on. It's like it can't stay on. Like there's some sort of short somewhere. That's the vibe I'm getting. It's not looking too good for this motherboard. I was just repositioning the camera for a different shot. I'm gonna show you this pulsing fan, and now it looks healthy-ish. It's lit up, it's spinning pretty consistently. Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. Unfortunately though, we get nothing on screen. It's just no signal as usual. Even after throwing the graphics card back in, same story. So I'm inclined to believe the graphics card is okay, but we're gonna confirm that with a separate known working platform externally. The hunch I have is that it's the motherboard because of where that floppy cable was connected. Super cringe, that could definitely fry a board. So I think I'm gonna replace that. Issue is I don't have a micro ATX compatible Ryzen motherboard to throw in here. We'd have to upgrade the case at the same time, which I'm not going to do. This case is perfectly fine, has decent airflow. And I wanna stick with the same form factor. I think this was intentional. He wanted a smaller sort of tower. So I'm going to order a motherboard and have it overnighted from Amazon. And in the meantime, we're gonna test all of the other components separately to ensure that those still work by the time the new board arrives. This method also allows us to sidestep the elephant in the room, that being the potential for this motherboard to kill anything else I might connect to it that I already know works. So we'll test the DDR4, we'll test the APU, make sure that those things are good, and if they aren't, then I know not to let those touch anything else that I have here that I might replace. So it's kind of a way to insulate yourself from additional damage. If this entire platform is cooked, we're gonna figure that out without hopefully cooking any of my hardware in the process. So what we have here is a makeshift test bed. Everything in this currently works, and this is all stuff from my own stash. Just wanted to show you that it is good to go, up and running. You can see that it posts there, and that's all hunky-dory, but we need to start swapping one by one things from his PC into this working rig to see if those components do in fact still work, or if they, blew up or something. The very first test is going to be his graphics card. I, again, do suspect that it will work, but I've been wrong before. Sweet. All right, that is a post. That's exactly what we wanted to see. We just need to reset TPM every time we power on. It's gonna prompt that message, so ignore that. The good thing is we get a picture out, so we can set the graphics card aside and move on to the next thing. By the way, quick side note, this scenario here is where having a lot of hardware on the side comes in super handy. Troubleshooting is so much easier when you actually have other components to swap with. And this is a privilege that I have of being a tech YouTuber. I have access to so much hardware, whether it's sent to me for free in exchange for exposure and videos. You guys know how it works by this point. Or whether I buy it out of pocket and write it off. I have a lot of the stuff at my disposal, and so it makes it easy. A lot of the folks that actually submit their rigs to be fixed in this playlist know how to troubleshoot, probably as good if not better than I do. They just don't have the components on hand, and that's what makes all the difference. Gonna test his 2 sticks of memory next. Make sure that we have these in slots 2 and 4. And would you look at that, another post, so we know that both his original kit of RAM as well as the graphics card are good. Also just confirmed his SSD works just fine. And that leaves us with this guy here. Really hoping the 5600G works. If so, that means that me being preemptive and ordering that replacement motherboard was a safe bet. And if it doesn't, then it's not really gonna tell us much. Maybe this is dead and maybe the motherboard is dead as well. Or maybe the motherboard is actually okay, in which case I might want to swap one of my known working Ryzen chips into his board. Here goes nothing. This is for all the marbles. From my experience in similar situations, I'd say we probably got about a 75% chance or so that the CPU does work. The motherboard is likely the only thing that took any real damage. That goes without saying. It is entirely possible that the CPU was also killed in the process. I'm just gonna hope. That's strange. It's power cycling a lot. I know you guys can't see it from there, but it has turned on and off probably 10 times now. Oh, there we go. That is a post, so it was likely just training memory a bit longer than I was expecting. This is great news. Honestly, a really good outcome. The motherboard, like I said, already ordered ahead of time. I just wanted to make sure that I'd met that window so that it could be delivered overnight. That's why I ordered it a bit earlier than I probably should have. At this point in the real world, you would want to order your motherboard, because we've tested everything else in this rig and it all works independent of that board. Like I said, we're gonna be swapping the power supply out, so that's a separate thing. Don't expect we're gonna have any issues with that. And the only other thing I haven't actually plugged into the rig yet is a 2.5-inch SSD that he removed. He didn't actually get around to reinstalling it when he was fiddling with the hardware ahead of time. I don't think the SSD is gonna cause us any problems. I'll test it off camera quickly. If there are any issues, you'll hear about them in the video. All that's left to do now is await that motherboard's arrival. We'll get everything back into his case and cross our fingers. We should have the system working in the morning.
Day 2.
Here we are. The motherboard has arrived. My oh my, it is an absolute mess right now. So this one is, of course, micro ATX, which we need for his case. It also has Wi-Fi support, as does his original motherboard. I didn't want to change anything with regard to the feature set. This does have a newer chipset, B550 versus 450, and it's brand new. So there's that perk as well. So we're gonna throw all of his confirmed working stuff back in here, starting with his 5600G. Then we'll move on to his M.2, sure, why not? We've got a toolless install method now, which is nice, so no small screw needed. And we've got his 2 sticks of DDR4. Again, all of this confirmed working in the previous clips, so it's nice to have that peace of mind, just reassemble everything as is. I have no reason to suspect this board's dead because it's brand new. Now we're getting around to installing his aftermarket cooler. Take this, but as you can see, his is pretty disgusting. So we're gonna take this outside and dust it very quickly. Also gonna take this time to quickly dust the remainder of the case, including these front case fans that are pretty gross. So I got my electric duster here. This stuff's linked in the description if you want some of it. Here we go. Well, still far from perfect, but a lot better than we started. At least we don't have large dust bunnies like we did before. This might even help with thermals a bit. So we're gonna carefully apply some fresh thermal grizzly compound and then gently lower down the cooler and cross tighten it down. The entire platform is now assembled. It's time to throw this into the case. We'll hook up the new power supply, get the graphics card back in here, and power on. First, we've got to remove the old rear I/O shield. Yeah, that's how you cut yourself. Be careful. That's more like it. New one's been installed, and now here goes the new platform. Very carefully setting things into place. Just getting all of our basic wiring taken care of. I believe we are now ready for the power supply. So this here is a Be Quiet Dark Power 13. And it's one of the sexiest power supplies I've ever seen. I can't believe I'm using the word sexy in a sentence along with power supply, but this really does look beautiful. It is fully modular. It is 80+ titanium rated. Like I said, 1,000 watts. It's gonna be way more than this system needs. Honestly, this system would be fine with probably a 500 or 600 watt unit, but Be Quiet said, nah, load him up, fam. Give him like the best of the best. And then if he wants to migrate this to a new system later, he definitely can. This will give him plenty of upgrade headroom. Should be the last thing on his mind for several years to come. That's the entire reason why this is going in there, apart from the fact that his original unit was acting pretty sketchy. I mean, for real though, just check out the sex appeal on this thing. It is unbelievable. So just well thought out, well designed. I've used Be Quiet power supplies for years, and that's why I'm super grateful that they are a continued product sponsor of this Fix or Flop playlist. This is a little large, but again, it's gonna give them tons of headroom for the future. Let's get this thing in there. Oh, one more thing, you can find it linked below in the video description. I know to some of you, it is pure cringe seeing this expensive of a power supply on a rig like this. In fact, I think this is the most expensive component in this system now. But remember, the viewer is getting this for free, no harm, no foul. And I think we've got it lined up. We'll screw it in from the rear. All the major stuff is now wired except for the graphics card, which we'll take care of right now. Slot it in right here. Last on the agenda is a single supplemental PCIe 8-pin. I'm gonna have the cable wrapped around the side of the card. Normally I wouldn't go for this look, but before, the cable was almost snagging in the fan shroud, so I want to eliminate that possibility if I can. And just like that, we are ready to finally power on for the first time with the replacement motherboard in here. I'm just gonna go for it. Really hoping this works. By the way, we'll take a quick look at that old motherboard after this. Okay, good first sign. All the fans are spinning. Graphics card fans are spinning. Looks like the CPU cooler fan's spinning as well. We're connected to the graphics card. We're looking for a picture out. Any kind of post would be appreciated. Oh, please. There. There we go. Oh. Can I tell you the things that were running through my head just 5 seconds ago? This is a relief. I'm like, what else could it be? Like, we've literally tested everything else in this rig with the exception of the motherboard. I didn't want to put one of my known working AMD chips into his motherboard, but that is the only thing here that that I'm fairly certain doesn't work, and I'm not willing to risk one of my chips to test it. What we will do is give it a quick visual inspection. You'll see though, after looking at this, there's not much here. It's slightly dirty, that's to be expected, it's a used board, but other than that, I don't see any burn marks, particularly around the USB pin area where that floppy cable was connected. That was pretty cringe to see. I'm surprised nothing else died, I've got to be honest. This board actually did well in cutting power as quickly as it did, and this might have been the power supply, actually, now that I think about it, that cut power when it realized that it was sending it where it shouldn't have. But I would say this is a best case scenario given what we started with. Now I know it's not as satisfying, the fact that I won't be testing this board with any of my known working hardware. I know you guys want to see for sure that this doesn't work. I just don't want to take any chances because a power related issue was involved. The fact that power was sent where it shouldn't means that it's possible this board could kill other components attached to it. It obviously didn't do that for his, but again, I'm not in the business of killing hardware, and I'd rather save what I have on hand for future fix or flop episodes. It's safe to say this thing is toast, and for obvious reasons. What an adventure this one has turned into. I'm very happy with the ending. I'm glad that we were able to get this one back up and running. Yes, it took a bit. Yes, we had to order something just off the cuff. I didn't have an MATX B450 motherboard on hand, so we upgraded him in the process to a newer chipset, of course a brand new motherboard, upgraded his power supply as well, just because the old one was making some interesting sounds, and it may or may not have been related to the fact that that floppy cable was connected where it shouldn't have been on that board. But we ruled that out just in case. Of course, Be Quiet to the rescue there with a much beefier, super overkill, frankly, power supply in this rig, and cleaned things up a bit as well. Got rid of some of the dust, help with cable management a tad. This rig is ready to go for hopefully years to come. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you have a broken system and you would like a chance to have it fixed for free in this series, be sure to reach out via the form linked in this video's description. There you can submit a description, some photos of your rig, and yeah, we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Again, the service is completely free, and that's thanks to your viewership, so thank you so much. Check out relevant links to some of the stuff you've seen us use to troubleshoot in this video, stuff to clean as well, and stick around for the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.